And so that's to your benefit, I think. This is just kind of the services we offer. I mean, obviously we do design surveys, airport surveys, DOTs. Last year in Huntsville, we're divided up into 5 business units. We have site solutions. That's basically all of your, site civil work. We have transportation. We've got water, facilities, and geomatics. And so that's kind of our distribution, as you can see. 41% was site solutions, transportation was 23, water and geomatics were about the same. So I will say at Barge, each office is a little different, but we do a lot of internal support for our engineering clients. So it's a lot of topos, a lot of altas, a lot of things like that to support them. We use, don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We're kind of a Trimble shop, just so you know. We're R10s, R12s, TC3s, 7s, and we've moved to the 5s now. We have robotic total stations, Trimbles. We're S6s, S7s, S8s, and then we have a couple of SX10s that do the scanning. Those are great for like airport projects, because you can traverse and scan with those at the same time. Like if you're doing a mill and fill on a runway or something like that. We use Trimble digital levels for DOT style projects where you're setting geodetic control and coming off of EPS benchmarks to third order level standards. One of the things I wanted to let you know, we embrace technology. When you decide where you're going to go, you've got to get experience. That's a given. But, what is that experience going to look like? Do you want to use things like laser scanning or drones? Or do you not? Do you want to use hydrographic equipment? Do you want to know about all of that stuff? If so, then you need to be looking for a company that embraces technology. I feel like that's something that we do. When I got here in 2018, we had like this. We had this scanner right here, and I think one drone. Now we have 4 scanners. Actually, we have 5. We've got another one that I don't show up there. We're kind of like a scanner shop. The P40, you can see some of the different specs on this, but it's more for longer range scanning. If you got something that, like a road project, a corridor job, is great for that. The RTC 360 is great for doing like pump stations, rooms, indoor, inside, BOK. It's kind of similar to the RTC 360. It's just a real lot smaller. It's like a little canister. We'll put it upside down, stick it in a manhole, and it'll scan the manhole for doing asset inventory stuff, things like that. So that's kind of some of the scanning stuff that we do. This was a job that we did. We had several different intersections in Montgomery. So we used the RTC 360 to do terrestrial laser scanning. Obviously, we located the right-of-way and stuff conventionally. I used Leica Cyclone to process the scan data, to get it classified, registered. And then in TopoDot, I did the extraction. And I did it using MicroStation and an ALDOT workspace, because it was an ALDOT deliverable. So those are, a lot of times people want to know what's the difference between surveying and like an engineer. A lot of engineers, they know one program very well. They can do Civil 3D, or they can do, if they're transportation, they do MicroStation. Maybe a HEC-RAS program here or there, if there are some of that. But the things that we have to know here, especially when you're embracing technology, if you're using drones, you're learning Pix 4D. If you're using scanning, you're learning like a cyclone. If you're using Trimble equipment, you're bringing your data in and doing your adjustments and everything in Trimble Business Center. You know, all this type of stuff. So it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to kind of know. This was a job we did in Dothan. It's a wastewater treatment plant. We scanned the whole thing. Actually, we used the RTC 360 and the P40, and we did multiple scans. We set control throughout the whole site, and it was a pretty cool job. That's just like a little rendering over here, what it looks like. I mean, as you can see, it was a 20 acres. Took us like 3 days. This is Neyland Stadium, UT plays. You know, obviously, like I said, we're everywhere in Tennessee, so we've got a lot of the big Tennessee clients and some of that stuff. So this was a cool job that we did. As far as drones go, like I said, we had 2 or 1, I think, when I started. Now we have 5 DJI Phantom 4 Pros. We got 1 Inspire 2. We have a Wingtra VTOL, and then we also have a Matrice 300. And this is what it looks like. This has a LiDAR payload on it. We bought the Zenmoose L1. This is an entry-level LiDAR package. We did not decide to pay the $250,000+ for the Regal Ladybug, you know, that some people have. And you'll find that a lot of surveyors, like I know I had a conversation with Troy, you know, because there's a lack of people to hire, you're having to use technology to create efficiencies to try and get work done. So that's kind of some of the differences there, and it's all in how much you want to spend. This is kind of some of the, to give you an idea, we spent $40,000 on this entry-level LiDAR package. You know, there's some of the specs, 55 minutes. It's got your obstacle avoidance on it. It's got a pretty good range. I mean, obviously, you have to keep it in the line of sight, so I don't know what 9.3 miles does for you, but it does a great job. We're thinking about maybe getting some more of these to go with our different things. Right now, as far as our quadcopter drones, you know, we're trying to infiltrate that into a daily field crew workflow. So, you know, crew goes out to a site. If it is not within restricted airspace, first thing they do, pop the UAV up, scan the job. You've got that data in the can. If you don't do anything with it, but maybe do an ortho photo, you have that data in the can. Or you can set your aerial targets and do a mapping project with it, depending on the site. That's the drone taking off. We actually did this is kind of by my house, and I was doing some test project. We flew it at 100 feet, 150 feet, 250 feet on an area where we had already done conventional and compared. How good is the LiDAR? How good is it on, obviously, this area was a soccer field, so mowed grass. Then we had hard surfaces. We had, you know, asphalt parking area, curb, gutter, sidewalk, you know, and then we also had some areas that were about anywhere from waist high to, you know, knee high grass. And how, I mean, what's the penetration you're going to get? How good is a $40,000 LiDAR? You know, so you can tell your engineers what it can and what it can't be used for. So some of the things that it can be used for that we've used drones in the past. Obviously, this was a Alta survey we did on a mall, 95 acres. And I mean, if you had to go in here and do all these parking strikings, we used the drone to do that. We flew it, got the ortho image, dropped it in, traced the deals in some 3D. So useful. Gaylord Springs Golf Course, we flew it, created a DTM for some planning purposes for some things they were going to do out there. This is a landfill we fly quarterly. I mean, every quarter we're up there flying it, and we use the fixed wing because it's bigger, a bigger landfill, and they want to get quantities to compare. This is a DTM of the quantities. So that's kind of the barge spiel, kind of what you can expect if you come to Barge. Any questions about Barge, the company, any of that stuff?
Is there I know you said several scanners and drones. Does like every office have several, or like if one office needs it, y'all send it to another one?
We share it. So we have a dedicated, like in Huntsville, I have a dedicated drone for us, which is a quadcopter, a DJI Phantom 4. And then if we have a project where we need LiDAR, we'll have the Matrice come down and we'll fly it. If we need to share scanners, we've got 4 or 5 scanners, and we have like a list that we populate. And so some of the guys in Knoxville, they have a quarterly scan that they're doing for quantities and stuff. So the P40 kind of stays there, but if I need it for a job, I call them, hey, can I get that? And they'll ship the targets and the scanner to me, which I just did. I did Albertville Airport. We did the entire runway. I did a scan with that. And so they shipped me the scanner, and I did it that way. So that's how we kind of work.
I didn't know if y'all, like there was a crew that traveled that just did that.
No, we try and get, local people exposure to the technology, not one dedicated crew that's on the road doing all the high-end stuff.
So is there a lot of traveling ever, or is it a week at a time? Or?
As far as traveling goes, that's something that's a really good question. Because, and I feel like, when you talk about expectations here, unmet and met expectations. Any survey company, you have to be profitable. And that means a high billability rate. And so if you have a lot of local work, that's great. Guys can stay in town and they're good to go. If the local work dries up and you have the benefit of coming to work at a barge is we have multiple offices. So places like Columbus, Georgia, Nashville, and Knoxville are pretty much always busy because they have an in-place staff that has been there a very long time. Their phone rings. You don't really have to go out and sell work as much. So that being said, you have the ability to go work at another location as opposed to just, I guess, staying at the house, But yes, travel is involved. Last year, for instance, my guys traveled, I think, I added it up. It was 15% of the time. So, when you fill out a typical job application, they ask you, will you travel? And, less than 50%, less than 25%, or whatever. It was 15% of the time. This year, my guys haven't traveled at all. I mean, this is April 6th, but they've been in town when I say in town, within a 2-hour radius of where we're working. But there's a glut of work right now. Understand that eventually, I graduated in 2007. What happened in 2008? The world dropped out. There will be a correction. Right now, you guys are getting out of the great time. It's a high, and you're going to get a lot of money, and that's great. But, with me, I graduated in 2007. I just went with whoever's going to pay me the most money, and I didn't want to go to South Florida. So I went to Gainesville, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. I was with a firm there. 16 crews, first day. Hey, you're with me, college boy, kind of deal. And it rocked on that way for 10 months. And then they got rid of the dopers first. and then they get rid of the newest hired, next. So that's kind of, so there'll be a little bit of a correction, and there's some pros and cons, but I lost a guy to another company recently, I want to say last year, and he said, it was for like, obviously, you show them, you train them, you do this, you do that, invest, and it's another $1 an hour. But it really wasn't about the money, it was about guaranteed work intake. And there was a guy I hired from here, and same situation, we didn't have much in-town work, so he was traveling a lot, and he didn't want to do that. But any company, that's a good thing to ask. What's your local backlog work if you don't want to travel? If you want to stay on the road, like a lot of the oil and gas guys, they stay on the road, they go to, somewhere for 3 months, 6 months, and they're on the road, they're getting per diem, they're getting paid, they're getting 50, 60 hours a week, and they're making bank. And when the project's over, they move to the next project, and they hop to the next project. And when they run out of the project, they'll come and they'll apply with your company, but they're only going to stay there for a little while until the next big project comes. So that's typically how a lot of that works. So what to expect? I try to give my guys 4 10s at least, and then obviously you get 10 hours overtime if you want to work, most of the time you're starting out, it's just field work, you're learning the codes, you're learning our system, you're learning what we do, and then when you get that down, we move you to the next step. You get to do some of the processing, you get to come inside, you get to do a lot of that stuff. Ideally, just so you guys know, the most ideal candidate you can have that if you could put on a resume is somebody that is either not licensed yet or maybe just got their license. They can do Civil 3D, they can do MicroStation, they can do TopoDot or TBC or StarNet, whatever adjustment software they're using. They understand scanning, Cyclone, they can do Pix 4D, they can do all these programs, and and they know what a final deliverable looks like, and you don't have to hold their hand. That you can go get a job in any company, anywhere you want to go. That's what everybody's looking for. So why Barge? Opportunity, obviously. We're trying to grow. When you reach a certain point, and you become a business unit like survey, you only can do so much unless you hire bodies to create billable rate. So we're trying to grow. We've got some offices in the Panhandle that we're trying to fill, positions. We've got plenty of work in Columbus and Nashville, and just trying to find people. Obviously, we've got plenty of the benefits that everyone else does. Family-friendly atmosphere, high-profile projects. We got some on there that we can't talk about. We signed NDAs, but you probably post stuff a lot on your social stuff. We're employee-owned. This was probably the biggest selling point for me. When I come to work, my toil every day is I am getting a portion of that. So there was a guy, there's a company called PBS&J. His name, we'll call him Robert. And he started as a rodman, and he bought stock. that company went on to sell to Atkins North America, which went on to sell to SNC Lavalin. They were the largest engineering company in the state of Florida. He was made a multimillionaire because if someone told you, most of the time when your company gets bought out, you're going to get about a triple return on your stock options. So, if you got $300,000 or whatever invested, you just made $1 million, and you can go do whatever you want to do. You want to buy a boat, work the flats, or go turkey hunting, or whatever you want to do. That's what you can do. And so, that is something that was a big selling point for me. As I've worked for different small, medium, and larger corporations, and there's some pros and cons to each, and we'll talk about that. So what company is the best fit for you? So here's some questions to consider. What types of survey work do you want to do? We talked about this a little bit. Do you want to do laser scanning extraction? Do you want to be a UAV pilot? Do you just want to do boundary work? I've got a really good friend of mine who went to work for BLM. He works for government work. That is what he wanted to do. He's really good at legal. You don't have hard pressing private deadlines to deal with, but you're regulated a lot by Congress. Are they going to have any budget cuts? What administration's going to be in this year? How they feel about that? Construction staking is something that a lot of people don't want to do because there's a lot of liability involved. You got to have staff that understands it. And some companies, I know a company in Florida who's a DBE, they embrace construction staking. That is what they want to do. That's their bread and butter. And you can make some good money at it, But you take some green, fresh graduate and get him on a site with a contractor, they always want more than what you came out there. They think you got a gun and you can just shoot and give them anything under the sun. And you're getting architectural plans that are never in the real world. You got to scale them, move them, all this type stuff that people don't understand and don't know. So where do you want to live? So one of the reasons I ask where you guys are from or where do you want to live is because that's important. Do you want to be close to home? If so, be prepared maybe to sacrifice some of the opportunities or embrace some of the opportunities. It would be great if my parents, maybe they grew up in, we'll say, Atlanta or, Nashville or a bigger place where you got a lot of opportunities for things like different companies, jobs. This is so you can stay at home, a lot of that stuff. I use this example. South Florida and Opp, Alabama. Your opportunities are night and day. Municipalities in Opp, they only have a certain amount of money. Your tax revenue is only so big. So those are things that you really need to consider. I knew two guys that graduated. They went and worked in South Florida, West Palm Beach. They had them on the road doing like wetland surveys, and they did that for about 2 years, made good money, and they quit the company, left, and went home to Phoenix City, and one of them went to Camden or whatever. So I feel like that's something as an employer and employee expectations. You need to talk about that up front. Hey, if I want to stay close to home, I'm either going to have to go work for this guy who's a mom and pop, one horse guy who's mainly doing boundaries, lot surveys, or whatever that may be, or I'm going to have to start my own business. Now, if I'm going to start my own business, then I've got to get good experience somewhere so I know what I'm going to be doing. Or if I may have to move. I may have to move to a bigger city that, is that something that you want to do? Something to consider. Kind kinds of company you want to work for. We talked a little bit about government, private companies, smaller or larger companies. And then, can you live with results of your decisions? Will you have a retirement plan that is adequate in the future? Will you have quality health care that is affordable? Will you have a say in the direction of the company? Those are all three questions that I feel like are very important to ask before you decide where you're going to go. So we'll talk about three different types of companies. DBEs. I want you guys to read this. In 1983, Congress enacted the first Disadvantaged Business Enterprise statutory provision. This provision required ALDOT. And this is not just true of ALDOT, FDOT, GDOT, put a dot, to ensure that at least 10% of the funds authorized for highway and transit financial assistance programs be expended with DBAs. So this is typically a smaller company. It has to be a smaller, well, for it to be a DBE, most DBEs are small. SBE, I believe it's below 15 million. You cannot make more than 12 or 15 million in revenue and still be an SBE, small business enterprise, DBE, disadvantaged business enterprise. So pros, busy, a lot of times their phone rings. Large engineering companies have to use DBs. If you're an engineering company, you guys hear me on this, because if you're an engineering company and you do design engineering, that's your bread and butter. What are you going to want to sub out? Not your engineering. You're going to sub out survey, geotech, and environmental crap. That's what you're subbing. You're not subbing what is your bread and butter. So the first thing they look to sub is survey work a lot of times. So a DBE is great for that. Now, a lot of times they're busy, they're flexible, family atmosphere. The cons, a lot of times they're smaller, so you may not have as good a benefit package as you are going to be in a bigger place. A lot of times they're using low-end equipment. And you don't have a lot of the server infrastructure. It's typically more just, hey, we'll talk about it. And a lot of the organization levels aren't there. Employee-owned businesses. This is from an article I pulled. Evidence continues to mount that employee-owned companies simply perform better than their peers. They create more jobs, generate more wealth for their employee owners, and they give back impressive amounts to the communities they operate in. So team environment, opportunities for advancement, moderately organized, ownership opportunity. Cons, a lot of times they're regionally driven. You've got some, maybe they lack some standardizations because you've got some people in one area, you'll run into this if you get out and you go anywhere, but those words, well, we've always done it this way. Oh, well, let's not try anything else. Let's continue to do it the way you've always done it. It's kind of a joke, but publicly traded companies. A lot of times the pros with those, you got a lot of security as far as if you're meeting your billable goal, your group's doing good, they're not going to mess with you. Diversity, you got a lot of different types of people that work there. Good benefits, large projects, a lot of times you get good pay, and a lot of times you have some high-end equipment. The cons, utilization rate. You underline that, billable rate. If you are not meeting your billable rate, they are beholden to stockholders every day. If you don't meet your billable rate, you get put on a list. You hit that list 2 or 3 times, like, hey, what's going on with Johnny over here? Or Susie, how come they're not meeting their billable rate? Political and advancement. Do you know the right people? If you want to ever get past tech and be a manager or what have you, a lot of times you have a lot of corporate rules, so you're not very flexible there. A lot of times there's a lot of paperwork. My experience, IT is not the best. It's subbed out to some place and somewhere you have difficult understanding the people you're talking to. And a lot of times you lack a voice in the company. So those are just some facts to think about and consider. Now, again, these are generalities. They're not there could be exceptions to the rules. So people want to know, what can I make? You know, this was from 3 years ago, and I think these have gone up. But, you know, a lot of it depends on where you want to live. You know, what you can make. You know, opportunities, again, are different in different places. But those are some general salary ranges that people are getting paid. Now, I know people right now that I've talked to that are right at this very top end, and they're at like 3.5 year range because of they know Civil 3D. They can run some crews, they can do some stuff in the field. Now, they may not know about how to adjust traverses or do network adjustments or some complicated geodetic stuff that more experienced people may, but that's what the market is paying right now. It's pretty crazy. This was 3 people that I knew that worked for the 3 different types of companies that I talked about, and this was their salaries. Obviously, those are in different locations. So, but that's what I wanted to know when I was saying, how much can you pay me at the end of the day? You know, what can I make? So this was some industry trends. Again, this was back in 2018, I thought, and it was comparing stuff from 2015 to 2018. What you should notice about these first 2 columns, the higher end salaries for people that know what they're doing are going up. You know, typically people that they're skilled at their jobs are making more money these days because it saves the company money. You don't have project go backs. You don't have just a mess this guy left us with, you know, and they're willing to invest in that. This was the mean average salary in 2018. One of the things I found interesting from 2015 to 2018, if you notice, boundary surveying and construction site surveying had gone up. And that could be just an economic boom in the economy, but those are just some trends that I would share. So we have like 20 internships, 20 people that are going to be interning with us this summer, different engineers, surveyors, landscape architects, environmental scientists, you know, all those different people. You get to apply the theory-based learning to real-world problems, network with professionals, and build your resume. Obviously, what we want to do is our ideal person would come work for us in their life. I was rare. I don't know. I mean, it was a little different when I was in school, but my first year at Troy, I took AutoCAD, I think, and it was before I had any surveying classes, so I didn't know anything. And then that summer, I did an internship. Then I took some surveying classes, I did an internship. Then I did I needed to make money for some winter stuff. I did a Christmas co-op. I did, and I ended up graduating with 3 summer internships and a Christmas co-op. So I had a lot of experience. I worked for 4 different companies, 3 different companies during that time frame, and it really helped to build and shape me. I feel like the more internships you can get, the better to work on practical things. When you're looking for an internship, you know, think about the type of company that you're learning from, and is this somewhere that you're going to want to stay and get a job with in the future, or is this just convenient to where I live, maybe this summer, or, you know, think about all those things, because there's a lot of investing up front. You know, you're learning field codes, you're learning how to do all the administrative type of stuff that you have to do. But we would have you work for us like, you know, sophomore year, junior year, and then graduate, and then we give you a job offer and you come work for us. So that's obviously, what our ideal person would be. So we have internships, and I really, wanted to talk a lot about those. I understand that a lot of you guys may have already chosen where you're going to go, and, for those that haven't, I hope that this presentation has been helpful, and you would consider Barge. If you have some people that aren't sure where they're going or want to intern, I have some cards up here that are available. Feel free to take those. I posted the jobs on the Troy Geomatics Facebook page. I'm sure probably there's a bunch of companies that are posting right now because it's just a lot of work. You can apply here, bargedesign.com. I always tell people barge like the boat. You'd be surprised when you talk to people on the phone how they can't understand what you're saying. That's all I got. Any questions? Any comments? Talk to me.
Let's say for a graduate that wanted to work at Barge, is there some kind of concrete, I guess, path or schedule for that person to become licensed? Is there something already in place? Any kind of structure there?
We have kind of like a brochure that talks about your family groups, I guess, where you're at now, and then the path for you to get graduated, and then there's certain goals and metrics. Once you hit those, you get a raise to this amount of money, or your title changes to this, and so we do have that in place. It's, I guess, that's in place with HR.
Mm-hmm.
Practically, you're working day to day, with your manager and or managers in other sites, and they're obviously monitoring your progress and giving you opportunities to do different things. Tuesday, I had a meeting. I got 2 LSITs working for me. One of them graduated from Troy here. He's actually a pretty good dude, and he's doing a good job for me. Another guy's from like Louisiana. He's got some oil and gas experience. And I had 2 different projects. One's like a small 2-acre topo, and the other one's like a 7-acre topo on an airport. So I gave one guy, hey, this is going to be, I'm going to give you this project responsibility. You're going to go out here, set a pair, topo, and then I'm going to let you come in and draft this job. And so I have a senior CAD tech that kind of will go over some of the office side, and then in the field, I'll review their data in TBC with them and say, okay, this is what you did right, this is what you did wrong, and it's more of a hands-on approach. In some of our larger offices, like in Nashville, for instance, it's done probably a little bit different. So.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I got a quick question for internships. For housing, have you guys ever been able to provide a stipend for living if somebody wanted to work in a Huntsville office, or is it mainly just been the Dothan office that's working?
Well, typically we've been pretty flexible with that. So in the past, how it's worked is, if you're from, we'll say you're from, Birmingham, and you want to work in the Birmingham office. Well, that's, you stay at home with mom and dad or whatever, and you come work for us. Or you stay with your Aunt Shirley that lives in Atlanta, and you go work in the Atlanta office. That's kind of how it works. But we've talked with our COO and said, look, we want to give some opportunities for some kids that may not be from some of these areas. And so we have talked about providing some sort of a living stipend to help offset the cost of an apartment or hotel. The problem with apartments are, it's tough to get a 3-month apartment. You know what I mean? They want 13, 15-month leases now. They don't even do 6-month leases anymore. It's crazy. And then because the guy I tried to hire, he tried to get an apartment, and it was a nightmare for him. And so, in the larger offices, we have a lot more of that stuff. We have partners with maybe some local places. In other offices, it's going to be more on, if you can find something or that we're comfortable with, we'll work with you. So when Joe worked for us, for instance, he wanted to, I told y'all I went and worked in the Panhandle when I was in school. And so, I had to sublet my apartment in Troy. Well, that didn't go so well one year. I had a guy that was a con artist. He ended up writing a bunch of bad checks on me. Had to take him to civil court. It was a nightmare, man. He had warrants out. I guess he didn't even go to school here. I had no idea. And Joe, he decided he was going to stay in Troy, instead of sublet his place or whatever. And he worked for us in the Dothan office. Mm-hmm. So obviously we've done that in the past. If someone said, hey, I'd like to come to Huntsville and work for you, then we would definitely work with you on, whatever you need. But, going back to the map at the very beginning of the presentation. So, I know, for instance, these people need help. These people need help. These people need help. These people need help. And we may have some opportunities here. One of the unique things that Barge has that maybe a lot of other companies, we own a staffing company. So if you want to come on to work for Barge for a 3-month window, we can bring you on the staffing company. We can pay you maybe a little higher rate because we're just paying you. We're not really giving you any benefits or, you don't get any, we don't have all the overhead cost of enrolling you in a 401k and health savings account and all that stuff, because you're just doing a summer internship. So we're able to work with you in that capacity.
Yes, sir.
I have a question here, just from the sort of effective point of view. How long will cut the fresh graduates loose? Because I can think is when they work with you, because they work on summer, right? Mm-hmm. After how long they cut those guys work on their own individual? Depending.
A lot of that depends on how fast they learn and grow. I know one of the guys we hired from here, he no longer works for us. He worked with the senior kind of crew chief, and after about 6 months, he was good. He understood everything. He was doing everything correctly. He was a good employee, very impressive. obviously nothing can replace experience, you know. So when you're looking to go somewhere, you know, it helps if you're learning different types of stuff. So most companies have a bread and butter. Like some companies, they're going to just do lot surveys all day, go lot surveys. And you're going to get good at doing lot surveys. But then, and pretty much everybody can do a topo for the most part. But what happens if they got to go do a flood elevation certificate one day? And a new graduate's never done a flood elevation certificate, you know, or, you know, you have an as-built survey on a, you know, secured facility, you know, so there's, you know, if you're with a company that has a more well-rounded set of things you're doing and learning, you're going to be better prepared. And I guess I would say it's not about, don't think about right now. Think about what your goal is. You know, I want to be a licensed surveyor and I want to live here or do this. What is it gonna, how can I learn the most things to get that goal achieved? Not, I'm getting paid the most here, but are you really, you know? A lot of companies, you know, back in the day would offer a, you know, if you didn't go to school, if you just went and worked for them, you were a good employee and they said, hey, I want to go to school, you know, they pay for your school. And I wish I would have done something like that sometimes. But it's different depending on the employee to answer your question. Sometimes it's 6 months, a year, and they're moving on to the next thing. So I do know some managers at some companies that, you know, they'll tell you, I wish I'd had more field time. You know, and they're great in the office. They can do CAD all day, and they understand boundary adjustments and this and that, but some of them didn't spend a lot of time in the field because they had such potential. They were kind of pushed into the office quicker. So, you know, those are all some things to kind of, you know, consider, you know, career-wise.
So I saw quite a few of our graduates, they are actually right now, after they graduate from program for like 10 years or 12 years, because those are the older students I taught before. They're pretty much in the office now.
Yeah.
So I would say they probably go out occasionally.
Yeah.
Not every day. So.
Yeah, I go out probably, I don't know, I'd say 6 or 8 times a year to do, but it's on specific projects, you know, to help people out, you know, or the guys are slammed over here and I've got to go do this because we got to get it done to meet this deadline and some of that stuff. So yeah, most of them are, you're going to be in the office. And I mean, I've had guys that graduated that from the program, they were more, I would consider more of a GIS centric, and they didn't want to be in the field. I had one guy I interviewed and he said, look, he said, I went and worked for, I forget who he told me he worked for, but he worked for some company. They had him in the field, like paneling hubs, doing foundation surveys, worked for some mom and pop, and he didn't want to be in the field anymore. And I just, you know, it wasn't a good fit for what I was looking for. But, you know, that's kind of, you know, a lot of our graduates, a lot of people that I talk to who have been I mean, some of the stories that I can tell you, like, some guys, like, I know guys right now that have, we'll say they're right at like 3 years experience. But that experience is very limited. What happens is you gotta be careful at the company you choose, because they're slammed. And so they got this contract and they may have you just doing one thing every day during that summer to do that. So yeah, you're really good at doing, like, we'll say you're doing doing a drone pilot to fly stockpiles. And you go around and you do that. Great. Okay, now fast forward 3 years down the road, you're looking for a job, you're sitting in front of me, I'm looking at your experience. And I'm saying, okay, what did you do for this company? Well, I flew the drone, okay. Did you process the data? No, somebody else did that. So you know how to fly the drone? Yeah. Okay. And so the experience, while it's 3 years of experience, is very limited experience, you know. So getting those opportunities are important, I would say, and those are the conversations you need to have up front.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm not trying to get out of here.
Hey, no problem.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Learn a lot from you. Thank you. Oh, sharing all this.
No problem.
A lot of things they don't even think about.
My 2 cents, whatever that's worth.
Appreciate you coming and talking to me.
Hey, no problem, y'all grab those cards.
Let's grab one. Great.
Yeah.
Barge, you said you were feeling some Barge.
Thank you. You're welcome. Well, thank you for coming.
Hey, no problem, man. Appreciate your questions.
Yes, sir.
I'll probably see you around up there.
Yes, sir, you will.
Yeah.
You will.
All right.